All right, let's try to unpack this. You've probably seen those headlines lately about Iran and Israel, suggesting the direct fighting's over. It definitely felt like a full-blown war was about to kick off back in April 2024, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was tense. And, while it's true that the direct military tit-for-tat has stopped for the moment, the really interesting part is looking underneath that surface calm. Is it actually finished, or is something else maybe more familiar going on?
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We've got the source: Iran-Israel, direct conflict ends, shadow war continues. So our mission is to really get a handle on what happened in that April flare-up. Iran firing hundreds of drones and missiles straight at Israel.
Which the source notes was a response to that attack on their consulate in Damascus.
Right. And then Israel's, let's say, measured counterstrike a few days later. And the big question is why, even though things seem quieter now, does the source insist the situation's just reverted, that it's far from actually settled?
That really gets to the heart of it. If the direct attack stopped, why is the source putting such emphasis on this shadow war carrying on? We need to explore what that actually involves, the indirect stuff, like fighting through allies in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, plus things like cyber attacks, assassinations, that whole sphere.
Okay, so let's quickly revisit that peak moment in April. The source gives some pretty striking details about Iran's first move, framing it as, well, unprecedentedly direct.
It really was. What jumps out from the source material is just the sheer number, hundreds of drones, missiles. A direct, very open challenge, quite different from past actions. But, and this is key in the source, Israel and its allies had sophisticated defenses. They knocked down most of them. And that interception, according to this analysis, was really crucial in stopping things from blowing up even bigger right then.
And then Israel's response. The source breaks that down, too. It wasn't the huge counterpunch some people expected, was it?
No, not at all. The source describes Israel's strike as very limited, highly targeted. It seemed designed mostly to show they could strike back effectively, but without sparking a massive regional war. A calculated signal, really.
So diplomatic pressure played a role.
Definitely. The source points to intense international diplomacy, especially from the U.S., plus Israel's own strategic thinking. They both seemed keen, despite the tough talk, to avoid total war at that specific point.
Okay, so that intense direct phase passed relatively quickly, but the source immediately says, hold on, we're back in this shadow war. It's like the big waves died down, but the undertow, that's still strong. What does the source say this shadow war actually looks like day to day?
Yeah, and the source is good on this. It clarifies it's not just a vague idea. It covers specific active fronts. First, you've got the proxy conflicts. Using allied groups or even countries, think Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, various groups in Syria.
Right, fighting at arm's length.
Exactly. It gives Iran influence and applies pressure, but with a degree of deniability. It keeps opponents busy, drains resources.
And it's not just proxies, right? What else falls under this shadow umbrella, according to the source?
The source also highlights the ongoing cyber dimension. That could be anything from spying to attacks aimed at disrupting critical infrastructure. Attribution is often tricky there. And then there are covert operations. Less visible, maybe, but potentially significant things like targeted assassinations, intelligence ops, trying to degrade the other side's capabilities.
So it's this continuous simmering conflict, even without missiles flying directly between Iran and Israel.
Precisely. It's a constant sort of low-level pressure campaign, asymmetrical.
So bringing this back to you listening, what's the takeaway here? It seems the headline saying conflict over might be, well, a bit too simple.
I think if you connect the dots using this source, the main point is clear. That recent, very direct military clash between Iran and Israel, that specific phase seems to be paused temporarily. But their long-running indirect competition, this shadow war that is definitely still happening, is back to being the main arena.
And the source is pretty clear. The situation's still volatile. It could flare up again very quickly. Lots of potential triggers remain.
Which leaves you with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? How do you actually gauge the real state of play in conflicts like this when the visible direct actions are just, the tip of the iceberg? There's so much happening beneath